I'm not really sure how to start this, but I know that I've been meaning to make this video for a long time. I think I was just waiting for the right day, and I think that day is here. I'm sure many of you have heard by now, but Alexis Bezilla, a Linmar student, passed away of cancer earlier today. And I know it was earlier today because I'm a part of LMTV. I was there today, and when there is news of this sort that happened the day before, we get it out of the way first thing in the morning. And this was not on our news slot in the morning. This happened right in the middle of the day. I think Dr. Gustafson filmed the special report minutes before it went out, so I had no idea. I didn't know Alexis at all, but I saw her in passing a few times over this year, and she seemed nice. And from the bits and pieces I picked up from the special report, she fought some nasty brain and spinal cancer for 3 years and didn't complain about it once, from the information I picked up. And honestly, that brings back a lot of memories for me. There is nothing worse than losing a child. And I know that because I've experienced that 5 times. That's why I wear this. I'm sure a lot of you have been wondering about the Green Bracelet for a while. Well, here it is. It's as much, I feel like, for me as it is for you at this point. This bracelet reads, "Forever in my heart, Madison." Madison was a really good friend of mine, and our families were very, very close and still are to this day. Madison was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, a cancer that started in her lower back. Memory gets fuzzy at this point. It was either toward the end of kindergarten or the very beginning of first grade. I think they found it at the beginning of first grade. I was in the same class as her, Mrs. Murphy's class at Indian Creek, and it changed me forever. You go into school as a little 7-year-old first grader, and the biggest thing you're worried about is your spelling test or how much you're going to eat at lunch. I don't know. But for her, it was survival. Toward the later months of her cancer, she needed a walker to walk around. She could barely even do that. And right at the beginning of my second grade year, she died after roughly 8 or 9 months. I'm not sure if that's right, but she died. I was 7. She was 7. That was the first and the most painful for me. And then that happened in August of 2009. Fast forward 4 months, my aunt and uncle had their first 2 children. They were twins, James and Isabel Schwartz. They were born premature, and they died after a few hours. So that Christmas break sucked. They died 2 days before Christmas. My parents didn't tell me and my siblings until after Christmas. So after Christmas, we went up, and yeah. 2 of the more recent, I'm sure a lot of Linmar students will know. I have done a video with what happened with JC Payne back in December. Most people know about that, but a couple months after that, I think it was 2 months in late February or early March, but Lane Turner, who was no longer a Linmar student at the time, he was a year older than me. We ran laps together in gym. He was in the Marching Lions for 1 year. Really fun guy. Really funny, but he had his demons. And to this day, I don't know how he died, but he moved down to Texas after his junior year, after my sophomore year, and he died at the age of 18. I'm not going to pretend that I know what Alexis's family is going through, but I've got a pretty general idea, and it sucks. Death is a part of life. Death waits for no man or woman or child. It comes to everyone. It's easier to cope with death when it's someone's time. My great-grandmother died, I want to say 2 years ago. She was 96 years old. She lived a great life. It was sad when she passed, but it was her time. The fact that in my 17 years of life, I have personally lost 5 kids, not 5 people, 5 children who had their entire lives ahead of them, who had hopes, who had dreams, who were going to change the world. They're gone. And I don't think I'll really ever fully come to terms with that. I just can't fathom how that can happen to someone so young, how a life can just be taken like that. It's gotten to a point for me when I expect the worst things to happen, and that's what happened today. At about 10 o'clock over the intercom, an announcement was made for teachers to check their emails before an announcement, and my mother's a middle school teacher, so I know the protocol on this. If something like that happens, it usually means one of two things in my experience. It means that there is either an imminent threat in the building, and the staff has to discreetly escort the students out of the building or barricade them in the building depending on the threat, or it means that a student has died. I don't tell you all of this to feel sorry for me. I'm the least of worries for people right now. I am on the very edge of this. I'm nowhere near Alexis's friends, her family, her teachers that taught her. I'm nowhere near that, but I make this video in hopes of at least trying to help people move through it. I mention all those people that I've lost, but the one I think about almost daily is her. Little 7-year-old me, I tried everything I could, everything in my little 7-year-old power to make Madison's life easier. I brought her little gifts every now and then. I walked her down the hallway a few times when she was on her walker. I went to one of her birthday parties, so that was nice. I remember the week of her death pretty vividly. I can probably describe to you almost every detail of the funeral, even though it happened over 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago this August. I don't tell people this to scare them, but I tell them this because it's just the way it is. When you lose someone like this, someone this young, to a disease so horrible, and you don't know why, some people turn to God. I didn't. I've been shutting out God for years. I just can't fathom how, if there is a God, why does he let kids die? And I don't mean to get religious on that, but that's the big reason that I really don't go to church anymore. I haven't gone to church in years. I haven't attended regularly in years. When this happens, for me at least, it has hardened me over time in a way. I'm angry a lot when I think about it, because I just cannot fathom how something like that could happen. Madison was a lot like Alexis. She didn't have cancer for as long as Alexis did, but little 7-year-old her, I'm gonna show you something that I keep in my room. This is a combination of the bear is for my cousins, and then the button is hers. She made up these little buttons, stupid cancer, That was her idea. She put them on little buttons and she handed them out to everybody. And she always told everybody, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. She put a smile on her face every day. She did her little first grade work. She still hung out with her friends as much as she could. She hung out with her baby sister Kendall as much as she could. And she smiled until the day she died. This kind of loss, I'm not going to say it gets easier because it doesn't. It doesn't get easier. In fact, it gets harder. Madison and I would be seniors. I'd like to think that we'd still be good friends to this day. Most of the pain stems from all the things that could have been, and boy, what could have been with all the people that I've lost. The possibilities are endless. I run scenarios in my head all the time, almost every day, just because of how much it's impacted me. Every time I think about one of them, I just think, what could have been if they wouldn't have died? It doesn't get easier, it gets harder, because the more memories you make without them, the more you miss them because they weren't there. It doesn't get easier, but my point is, you learn to live with it. You learn to kind of hide it away a little bit. You never, ever forget something like this. But you remember when you need to, and today is one of those days for me. You remember them when you need to. The most important thing you need to do is live like they couldn't. This little 7-year-old taught me more in a few short months than I've learned in the rest of my life. She taught me to keep my head up and put a smile on my face and just keep going. She kept going and she kept living her life even though cancer was striking her down day by day. You need to use what you've learned from the people you've lost to make yourself a better person. I use the passing of one of my best friends to better myself, to show empathy for others, to know what they go through. And the very dimly lit bright side of this is that this happens to most people more than once, and you're better the next time around and the time after that. And it's gotten to the point where I try and help people more than I help myself in situations like this, because at this point I don't need much help getting through stuff like this. But in the time that I spent grieving for my friends and family, I didn't turn my faith to God. I turned my faith to the people that I see and know and trust and love. People need people. Good days and bad. People need people to help each other get through life. That's just the way it is. All children need someone to look up to. All adults need colleagues to confide in. All world leaders need counsel to help them make the right decisions. But most of all, when a child passes on from this world too soon, you turn to the people you love and you hug them for as long as you can. Because you never know if they're going to be next. As morbid as that sounds, you never know when you're going to lose someone you love. But if and when you do, turn to the people that you care about the most, that care about you the most. And leaning on each other will get you through it. You will not forget. It won't really get better, but it will get easier. As time goes on, you learn to live with the pain. And you use that pain to make you a better person, and you use that pain to help others who are going through it the first time. That's why I wear this bracelet, to remind me of all of those things. And that she's always with me, my cousins are always with me, JC, Lane, Alexis. As long as you remember them in here and in here, they're always going to be with you. Again, I did not know Alexis Bezilla, but I would like to give my deepest condolences to her family and friends and everyone who was close to her. I know from experience that this is probably the hardest thing that they will ever go through, but you will get through it. And you will be a better person because of it. I hope this helped some of you. I know it helped me a little bit. Every time something like this happens, I think back to all the people I've lost, even though I didn't know Alexis at all. It makes me think back to the people that I lost, and it makes me think of ways that I can help. And I hope that this was one of them. So, sorry for the kind of morbid video, but I feel like it had to be done. Remember those that you've lost and make yourself better because of it. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.